All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope all of you can hear me and hope all of you can see my screen. So I'm still waiting for the participants, but it's already 8:07 p.m. IST, so better to start. So can I have a quick confirmation, everyone? Are you able to hear me? All right. So perfect. Thanks for the confirmation. So let's have a quick recap about what we have done yesterday, right? So we started with SDTM. We all know SDTM stands for, what is SDTM? Study data tabulation, correct? So this SDTM, currently we are referring with 3.2, that is, so SDTM providing a simple implementation guide. The implementation guide that we are referring is currently 3.2. Even 3.3 is there, but most of us are still at 3.2. Need to say all the companies are still sticking to 3.2 version. That's the reason we are discussing about 3.2. For an example, yesterday we started this, but we haven't go in detail. So let's complete that today. So what is the first thing? So when you want to start your study, the first thing is going to be in your study, the entry point is going to be you required review documents. So what do you mean by review documents? So first we have study. So I'm going to start the study. So when we start the study, the first thing that we are looking at is we want to stick to the what is that? We want to proceed with the review documents. Can someone tell me what are the review documents that are required as part of your study? Can someone? Okay. The first one is going to be protocol, correct? So the protocol is nothing but the entry point. It has the information about what is going to be the trial that you are going to conduct, what is the methodology that you are going to follow, what are going to be the statistical measures, every piece of information. Number two, once we have protocol ready, the same, whoever is going to be the sponsor or whoever is going to be the lead is going to provide you the raw data sets. That is nothing but the data that has been collected. Correct? Number three. So we from the CDISC, you can get your SDTM implementation, right? Which is 3.2. Okay. Number four. You are going to get your CRF. ACRF will not come here. Annotated CRF will not come here. You are going to get only case report form. Correct? The case report form is going to have the details about. So what is going to be the study? All those kind of details. This is your CRF. Your study title, your investigator details, your demographic details, inclusion exclusion criteria. What is going to be the the habits? That is nothing but these parameters are nothing but your smoking habits, alcohol consumption. Are you under any medication or not? What is going to be a previous medical history, right? All these things you are going to have it under your CRF. Along with the CRF, you're also going to have SOP, which is nothing but the standard operating procedures. You're also going to have SAP, which is nothing but your statistical analysis parameters, correct? So there are some specifications are there. Those specifications also you have to consider. So all these are going to be your review documents. So once you have review documents and all, the next step is going to be we need complete details about the subject. The subject is nothing but patient, right? All the details we need to have. All those details we are going to keep it under the ACRF. ACRF is nothing but annotated case report form, which is going to be validated by your DL. So how you are going to prepare your ACRF? To prepare the ACRF, you require, what is required here? To prepare ACRF, you required first a blank CRF, correct? First I required a blank CRF. Again, you are going to have your protocol. Am I correct? The same protocol is there. You are also going to have your case report form. You are also going to have your SDTM technical implementation guide. Along with that, you are also going to have your raw data sets. By utilizing all these, by utilizing the SAS software, you are going to produce it. Yesterday, I have also given the details about how to produce it. Correct? So if I want to talk about that on a lighter note, what you're going to do, there are 3 steps involved in preparing this. What is the first step? You are going to prepare an Excel. The Excel is the one which is going to have the details about your CRF, your columns that you want to populate in your ACRF, and also you're also going to have your derivation, sorry, orientation, correct? So orientation have 4 different values. Those 4 different values ranging from 1 to 4, that will be decided based on what kind of study that you are actually doing with. Am I correct? So these are the Excel. So once you have this particular Excel, by using your SAS software, you are going to input source this particular Excel file, and what you are going to get, you are going to get a very nice format. Here is what that particular format, you can call that as a XFDF file. You are going to create your XFDF file format. After that, what you are going to do, this XFDF file format is nothing but this is the one which is having those annotated boxes, because your case report form is going to be like this, correct? So this is going to be a variable, means your variable what exactly it is, which domain it belongs to, what is the variable name, correct? Those are called annotated boxes. Those annotated boxes will be prepared or will be produced by using particular SAS program, by utilizing your Excel that is manually prepared. Am I correct? So once I have these 2 information, and what's the next step? Finally, we are going to create the ACRF. By exporting that, we are going to get your ACRF. That ACRF is going to be validated by your TL. So once TL has validated this particular one, the next step is going to be, we are going to create what we are going to create here, guys. Once we have this particular one, then we are going to create Sdtm mapping specification, correct? So this is having specification. This is also called as, this we also can prepare based on the DDT. DDT will be called it as your data derived table. But if you want to prepare this particular specification, this what I can call the specification document, if I want to create, I need some mapping Excel, correct? I need some specifications. I told you yesterday, this specification either you can prepare from the scratch, or you can also utilize this particular one which is already prepared by some other programmers as part of your project. Any of this will be done. 90% of the cases we are going to utilize the one which is already available, and your specification documents are going to look like this. So for each domain, what is going to be the, where exactly I can find this particular data set and other details. Am I correct? So this also we have discussed yesterday, but not on a very lighter note, we discussed this. Okay. What is the next step? Once you have this particular one, now you know your domains, right? What domains you have, what and all, from where and all you are going to pick the data. All these details will be available for you. The next step is going to be, once I have these particular details, the very next step is we go with the programming plan. Am I correct? That is actual SAS. You are going to be a SAS developer is involved here. So here is what we are going to have. So instead of SAS, I can simply say that programming plan. What do you mean by programming plan? A programming plan is the one where your TL along with your, it can be a TL, it can be a Scrum Master, it can be anything. So here we are going to decide who and all working on what domain, because I have multiple domains involved in this particular project. So who is working on what domain? That particular details will be mentioned in this particular domain. Sorry, in this particular phase. So once you decided that, so there are 5 domains, there are going to be 5 programmers. Each programmer is going to work on this specific domain. Then immediately your programming is going to start. So for my convenience, I'm just keeping here programming plan along with the programming both of them. That is programming, implementation. I can say that implementation. Both of them we are going to do it here. So what do you mean by the programming implementation? Meaning after I complete my program, I can expect that my output is nothing but the SAS tables, and all these SAS tables are in compliance with the implementation guide. That is, whatever we mentioned in the implementation guide, whatever CDISC standards are there, according to the particular standards we are going to prepare. We have already prepared this SAS tables, correct? So this is, we can call it as Sdtm output. This Sdtm output is nothing but your results. These results are in the form of SAS data sets. Am I correct? So the SAS is actually entered into the into your thing here. This is where we actually enter into the show, correct? So we are going to have our raw data sets, and the raw data sets we are using here. So we are going to prepare the data sets which is in compliance with the Sdtm implementation guide. Now, the next step is going to be, we need to convert these all these SAS data sets into a different file format, that is, so the different file format that I'm calling here is nothing but I'm converting SAS data sets. Just a second, my keyboard, just give me a moment. Now it is okay. So my converting SAS data sets into, we can call a file system which is nothing but XPT files. We can convert all our SAS data sets to XPT file system. So these XPT files, we will source it to, there are multiple softwares available. One of the common software that we all use is going to be, we will give this particular one to Pinnacle. So precisely speaking, we can call it as the Pinnacle 21. So this software and all I'll show you, no worries, like how it looks like and what we are going to do with this, we can discuss that. This is just the base to understand the entire workflow. So now I'm going to have my Pinnacle. So I'm going to supply this to the Pinnacle. The objective of using the Pinnacle is going to be, my final report is going to be in an XML format. So the output of the Pinnacle is going to be, because it is going to utilize your Sdtm implementation, right? And it also do the validation. By end of this particular one, I'm going to have two different reports, or I'm going to have two different files as the output, or two different files I'm going to generate. So the first file that I'm going to generate here is nothing but my define.xml. This is the XML file, or this is going to be the final file that we are going to give it to the, who's that? Our people. That is for submission, we are going to use this particular. We are also going to prepare something called validation notes. That is, we are specifying that we have also validated this particular document. We are giving that particular confirmation to the entire team. Now, once I have all this, because I have define.xml, my final report and validation, then I can say that, hey, I'm done with everything. I think this is going to be the end. Let's submit this particular report and get the approvals. So my final step is going to be, I'm going to submit this particular report. That is nothing but my end of study. That is submit study. So if you go in detail in clinical, like there are going to be few more steps you can see, but you don't need to be that, I can say that, you don't need to go that deeper on a very high level, because the reason why we are discussing that this particular flow and all is this is really important for your interviews purpose. That is, if your interviewer asks you about, hey, what is going to be your day-to-day work, right? Or can you explain me your workflow? In that particular scenario, you can explain this entire flow. Can I have a quick confirmation? All of you are comfortable with whatever I have discussed so far? Can I get a quick confirmation? Any questions here? Please feel free to ask if you have any questions or if you have any doubts. Please ask me. Guys, is my voice breaking? Please confirm, because Raja feeling that my voice is breaking. If so, I can check it my end. So everyone is clear with this? Okay, Raja, can you check it your end, please? So let me save this. So just go with Sdtm workflow. All right. So now today, yeah. So today we will continue with the next thing. The next thing is going to be, so in SDTM, what we are going to discuss. So we are going to discuss about various domains. What we are going to do? We are going to discuss about various domains, right? So what are those domains that we are going to discuss? Let me give a list of domains that we are going to discuss, right? So maybe I can also put this in a Jamboard. So this is also done. So now I'm going with SDTM domains. So what are the various domains that we are going to discuss as part of our number one? So the very first thing that we are going to discuss here is we will talk about special purpose domain. First thing is going to be special purpose domain. You can ask me, Murli, first of all, what is this domain is all about? You're talking about the domain, but what exactly this domain is all about? How do you understand this particular one? Any idea, guys? What is called domain? Anyone? All right. So we all know that there are going to be SAS datasets, correct? What these datasets are going to have? The raw datasets. Can I say that the raw datasets is going to have the info? Let's say that I want to know about the patient information, the demographics I would like to know. All the demographics I would like to know. Right? Mean to say, someone is saying common domain basic. Okay. Okay. So on a nutshell, can someone tell me, if someone asks you, because we are going to use two different terms continuously from here after. Number one is domain. Number two is going to be a data set. Anyone? Okay. In a simple terms, if I want to talk about it, in a very simple term, if I want to talk about this particular one, I can say that a data set is nothing but a structure, nothing but a table associated with a grouping of observations. Meaning that, let's say there is a patient. There is a patient. The patient information mean to say that what is going to be his age, gender, right? Followed by which continent he belongs to. That is nothing but a race, correct? So this information, whatever I talked about, this is nothing but a demographic information, right? About a patient, right? All these things I'm going to keep it in one table. So this table has the information about the person, his demographic information. Similarly, At the same time, when I'm talking about this particular one, I'm also going to talk about subject elements. Mean to say that what are going to be the various phases in which this particular patient is involved. Mean to say phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. In phase 1, what are the various vitals or what are the various parameters we have recorded? Phase 2, what we recorded. Phase 3, what we recorded. Then we also have the comments. What do you mean by comments? Comments are nothing but comments given by the investigator. So I have provided this particular drug as a result of this particular drug. This patient has responded like this. So comments. Then when we want to go with the information, when we want to go with the visits, scheduled visits. So when there are scheduled visits, there are unscheduled visits as well. So visits information I'm storing in one table. So now we can see demographics is part of one table, comments is part of another table, subject elements are part of the one more table, visits are part of the another table. So these individual tables which are having a specific information, we can call it as a data set. Am I correct? A data set is more about the information, the observations about the subject or about the about any entity. Correct? Then what is domain? The related data sets which we keep together, you can call it as a domain. Meaning there is a patient, I mean to say subject. The subject information, what treatment here, what are the elements that he is undergoing, that is what are the phases, what are the visits, and what are the comments that are produced, that are given by your investigator. If I keep all these, because these are talking about the details about a patient. What is the subject? That is, what is the patient ID, gender, his age, what drug he has taken, when he has visited the hospital, followed by what are the various comments passed by the doctor. All these together, because these are related information, these related information together, I'm going to keep it at one place. At that place, you can call it as a domain. So if someone asks you technically, hey, this is going to be the normal way, can you explain me in a technical way? Right? I can say that the grouping of the observations, you can call it as a data set, whereas grouping of the observations that are related is nothing but a domain. Right? Simply grouping of your observations is a data set. Grouping of observations from each data set which are related is nothing but a domain. Okay, let me explain you with the example so that it will be easily understandable. For an example, just now we talked about the first thing is going to be a special purpose domain. The special purpose domains has 4 different data sets in that. The first one is going to be DM. The DM stands for demographics. So what demographics is going to have? The name itself is going to tell you. The demographics is going to have information about the age, gender, the basic information, I can say that, about the individual subject. My keyboard, yeah. Second one. So we have the second one, which is nothing but CO. We can call that CO as comments. All the comments which are given by your investigator, we are going to keep it at one place. Then we are going to have something called SE. SE stands for subject elements. What do you mean by element, guys? Can someone please tell me? We keep on talking about it before I'm going to type it properly with the help of my keyboard. Can someone please tell me what do you call element? Come on. Anyone? Guys, I would need answers from all of you. Please consider this. And then I have something called SV. SV stands for, just give me a second guys, I'm going to change my keyboard. But it won't take time. I continue as we discussing, so no issues. Exactly, the clinical trials phase. The clinical trials phase itself, you can call it as a element, right? What do you call epoch? A continuation of that. What is called epoch, guys? Can someone please tell me? Group of elements will be called it as the approach. Wonderful, wonderful. Ratnasri and Sweta, thanks for sharing these details. Okay, now let me talk about this. So we have subject elements, then we also have this subject, call it as visits. What are the various visits? Right, both scheduled as well as unscheduled information, both of this will be available here. So now we have 4 different domains here, and all these 4 different domains together we can call it as, yeah, special purpose domains. Okay, now the second thing is we have something called interventions. You can call it as interventions. So now the thing is, what is called this interventions is all about. Thanks, Anchi. Thanks for the detailed one. I really like it. All right. So now let's go about talk about interventions. Under the interventions, we are going to have something called EX. EX stands for exposure. So don't worry, guys. We are going to talk about each and everything, what it meant for, what are the various variables we have, everything we are going to talk, right? All the variables which are part of it and how to understand that. That is what we are going to discuss about each domain. So no worries about it. So then the second thing is going to be exposure as collected. EC stands for exposure as collected. Then the next thing is going to be, you're going to have something called CM. CM stands for concomitant medication. So we are going to have something called concomitant medication. So what is going to be the medication and the respective details? This also we are going to discuss. Then we are going to have something called SU. The SU stands for substance use. What are the various substances we have used and are they in the compliance or not? So these are nothing but my, just a second, I just want to keep everything together. So this is your interventions. So these 4 will part of your interventions. Okay. So the next thing is going to be, you have something called events. What is that? You have something called events. Under the events, again we are going to have 5 different tables here. The first one is going to be, you can call it as AE. You might have seen in the list that I have shared yesterday, correct? So this is going to talk about adverse events. The second thing is going to be, you have something called MH. MH stands for medical history. You have something called medical history. So what is the patient medical history, right? Then we have disposition details, DS. DS stands for disposition. And then the next thing is going to be DV. The DV is nothing but, you remember I talked about something called deviation in the protocol. Though we are giving the protocol, sometimes we are going to have a deviation in the protocol, and we need to know that the deviation in the protocol must be within the limits, correct? So that details will be part of protocol deviation. All right. So now the next thing we have here is CE. The CE stands for clinical events. What are the various clinical events and what is the information about it? So this is going to be a third domain. So then you have your fourth domain, and the fourth domain you can call it as findings. So findings is all about, so what you have here. So findings primarily dealing with the laboratory, where you find something that is a laboratory only one, right? So under this particular one, you have first LB. LB stands for laboratory. So laboratory details, all the things. Number 2, that is the laboratory test results. Second thing is going to be VS. VS are nothing but vital signs. What are the various vitals and the signs respect to that particular one? Then we are specific about each of this particular diagnosis now. So now we are going to talk about EG. EG stands for ECG test. That is ECG results. Then you are going to have PE. PE stands for physical examination. Then you have, after the physical examination, there's no order, guys. You can go in any way. Okay. Physical examination, you have something called IE. You might know about this particular one, which is nothing but what is my inclusion criteria and what is my exclusion criteria. Inclusion as well as the exclusion criteria. So the next thing is going to be DD. This is not mandatory, but it is also required, which is nothing but death details, right? So final one in this, which you can call it as a DA, this is nothing but drug accountability. All these domains, in each domain, what are going to be the data sets? In each data sets, what we are going to, what are the various columns are there, and what is the meaning of each and every column that we are going to discuss. So no worries about it. So the next thing. So these are main, these four I can say that main domains. In addition to that, we have something else which is very small one. I can call that particular one as trial design models. So in this we have 5 totally. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me write all those. We have 5 things in the 5 in this. One is TA. The second one is going to be TS. The third one is going to be TE. The fourth one is going to be TV. And finally, the fifth one, which is nothing but TI. Can anyone tell me what each one of this is basically referring? What is TA? What is your TS followed by TE, TV, TI? Wonderful, Sanchi. Yeah. So the first one is going to be trial arm details. Second one, TS. Someone saying trial summary, someone saying okay, just give me a second. Trial summary, trial visits, trial inclusion. Okay, can someone please give me the concrete details about this? Anyone? So okay, Raja, you're saying TI. TI is absolutely correct, which is nothing but your trial inclusion. Okay. TV stands for trial visits. TE stands for trial events. Now the question is going to be, what is TS? So can I say trial summary? You're already given these details. So all these trial design models we are going to discuss. This is small one actually. It is not going to be like a time-taking one compared to all other domains. This particular domain will not take much time. It is much simpler. That we can what to say, quickly complete this. In addition to this, we also have few other domains. You can call them as directly. So maybe if time permits, we go with that. If not, we will not. But 90% of the time, I'll go with this. So those are called supplementary domains. And we also have something called rel-rec domains. So what are these and why we are not talking about the data sets within that? No worries, we can talk about this later. So this, if time permits, I'll go with this. If not, I may give the details and take this. But 90% I can go ahead with the details here. So first of all of you understand what we are going to discuss as part of your SDTM domains. We are going to talk about these domains. We have totally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In each domain, we have different set of data sets. All these data sets in detail we are going to talk. Any questions? If anyone is expecting anything other than this, kindly let me know. All clear? All right. So the next topic, who is this? Sanchi, PK domains. So what I can do is I can give you the guidance about them. All right, what is PK domain, what and all we have in that, how you are going to read that. I'm going to give you the details about it. All right, this itself will take a lot of time, but still we can go ahead with that. See, naturally, if you're good with 1 or 2 domains, which is more than sufficient. So as long as you are good with these special purpose domains, your events, your interventions, findings, and trial design models, this itself is going to suffice, or I can say that this itself is going to meet all your requirements. Beyond this, if you are looking also, I can guide you how to proceed with them. We have implementation guide. I'll help you with how to utilize your implementation guide. Clear? All right. The next thing is going to be here. Now we are going to talk about the next thing, which is nothing but, before we start with each of this particular domain, we need to understand few things. Those are nothing but SDTM guidelines. What is that? We need to talk about something very important, which is nothing but SDTM guidelines. Just give me a second, guys. This is going to be SDTM guidelines. So let me tell you why this is required, SDTM guidelines. You need to understand, if I say domain, within the domain, what and all you have. I mean to say that we open the SDTM guidelines. Anyways, I'm going to share this with you. If you see that, the fundamentals of SDTM, here you can see not even this. Just give me a second. I'll take you to a page so that you can understand. Can you see this? This is your demographic data. DM examples, demographic data is there. Just functions. So this is the first model, right? Because in the special purpose domains, the very first one is going to be demographics, correct? So if you see the demographics, you know what is called variable name. So what is variable name? Which is nothing but the column name. Within the data set, what is the column name is that is variable name. So since we already understand what is called SAS and all, we can easily talk about this particular one. Second, variable label. Label is nothing but, we all know that our SAS dataset and SAS variables have specific rules, correct? I cannot have a space there, and I can also I cannot go with more than 32 characters long as well. So to make sure everyone understand what is this particular study ID or USUDJ ID, what exactly it is a unique subject identifier. So to give a name for it, we are going to put a label. You can understand this just like here. In your kitchen, you can see there are a lot of boxes will be available, nothing but your containers, correct? So for each container, you're going to put a label just to understand quickly, correct? So the label is going to guide you what exactly it is. Am I correct? So that label we are talking about. So what we are talking about. So this is how your demographics data looks like, correct? So I know what is variable name, and I know what is called variable label, and I know type, because SAS has only character as well as the numeric. So totally acceptable. Now, can you see the next one? Controlled terms, code list, or format. So simply I can call it as a format. So this is format is also fine. But we need to understand what is called this role, what exactly it means, what is the score is all about, right? And also we need to check about what is the CDISC notes is all about, how to prepare it, how to understand this particular one. These are very, 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 very important, correct? So along with that, if you also see this in your previous slide, you can see all your domain names, all your dataset names are going to be like, you're also, you just have only 2 letters, correct? All the special purpose domains, everything you can see, it only have 2 names, 2 letters, correct? So we have a standards even in defining these things. Those standards we need to understand. So the very first thing that we would like to understand here is going to be the first thing. We need to understand that as per Sdtm guidelines, domain name, all the domain names should be, contain 2 letters. All I can say that it should contain only 2 letters. Whatever the domain you take, you're going to have only 2 letters. That is the first thing. Number 2, every domain should have a proper label. What is that? Every domain should have a proper label. What do you mean by label? Only when you have a label you can understand it. Otherwise, how do you know that particular one? Correct? And here there is another guidelines, that is maximum is going to be 40 characters. That is, whatever the label that you are going to put, it should not exceed 40 characters. The first one, correct? The second one, whatever the data, whatever the label that you are giving, the label should be in a prop case. You know what is prop case like? We have uppercase, lowercase, as well as the prop case. So it should be in a prop case. These two are the mandatory things. All right. Number 3, if you want, you can check here. Just a quick comparison. Can you see this? DM. What do you mean by DM? Description or overview for the demographics domain model. Correct? That is nothing but your label. This entire thing is going to be a label. Correct? Next. Number 3, you also need to understand when I talk about the variables, all the variable names, it should be, or I can say that the variable names should not exceed, or variable name should not exceed 8 characters long. What do you mean by that? For an example, I can go with some of the variable names. Okay. So what are the variable names? I can simply say that I have something called here, this itself you can refer. I can say that unique subject identifier. This is the label, but what is going to be the variable name here? I simply have use subject ID, correct? Simply I can say USUBJ ID. I can have something called age. The age is going to be 3 characters. Fine, because which is within the permissible limits. I have a variable called sex, which is also within the 8 characters long. And you also have some of the variables which are 8 characters. Can you see this particular one? That is date and time of last studies treatment. You can call it as a RFX and TC. TC stands for your timestamp. Both time we are going to have your time as well as the date. That's the reason you can call it as a timestamp. So this is end, this is going to be start. So there are 2 things. Right? So we are going to, let's take this particular example. In this particular example, I can see that the maximum length is not exceeding 8. Correct? So the first thing is going to be, we need to understand that whatever the data is there, whatever you are preparing there, all of them should be under the compliance. That can be a domain name, that can be your data set name, or that can be your label, or that can be of your anything that for the matter of the fact, even the format, anything for the matter of the fact, it should be of as per the guidelines. So I'm just keeping that here. That is final outputs, because we are creating the standard SAS data sets, right? So the final output domain also, the final output domain also should be in compliance with, or I can say that final output should be in compliance with Sdtm implementation guide 3.2. Correct? I don't know whether you have identified or not. Look at this particular one, especially. Look at this particular, all the variables you can see here. Did you find anything odd? Did you find anything odd? Mean to say any variable or its name or it is going to be type, anything do you feel odd here? Anyone? Okay, let me point it out. Take this particular row. Now on this particular row, did you find anything which is odd? Variable names are in caps. Okay, that's fine. A good identification, but still that is fine. Anything other than this? I have highlighted the row as well. Maybe ISO 8601. Okay, ISO 8601 is going to be your date format. Wonderful, wonderful. Now it's a good catch. See this? Either you can consider this one, or you can consider this one, or you can consider this one. All these are date and time, right? In general, the date and time format or date and time must be in a date is in a numeric format, correct? But can you see this here? Everything is in a character format. So you need to understand this particular one, and you need to remember this. That is nothing but all SDTM date variables are of character data type. This is very important, right? For an example, I have a date, right? Let's say I'm just giving a date, today's date, 2022 04 followed by 07. This is our today's date, correct? What is the format here? Can I say that this format is nothing but what is the format of this, guys? Anyone can tell this? YYMMDD 10. This is the format. Either you can use this particular format, or in SDTM we use a different format, and that different format is nothing but the one that you have identified, which is nothing but ISO 8601 followed by DA. So which is nothing but it is going to be of the same format that you can see it at the top. That is nothing but 2022 0407. Both the formats are going to be the same. If you want to represent the both date as well as the time, that is nothing but the timestamp. In that case, I'll go with ISO 8601 DT. This stands for DT stands for timestamp. For an example, 2022 0407 followed by time, the timestamp. So what is the current time now? 9 o'clock exactly. So which is going to be 21:00:00. So this is nothing but you are representing the both date as well as the time. Is that clear, guys? All of you are able to follow this? Can I have a quick confirmation? Domain name should be only of 2 characters, 2 letters maximum. Every domain should have a proper label. It must be a prop case and should not exceed 40 characters long. Variable name should not exceed 8 characters long. Whatever the final output is there, it should be in compliance with the Sdtm implementation guide 3.2. All Sdtm date variables are of the character data type. Questions? Any questions from anyone? It's not ended here. Still, there is some more guidelines. We need to discuss that. So I just need a confirmation from you. All of you are comfortable with this or not? All right. So let's go with the next one. So now if you go to the implementation guide, now you know the type, you know the format, why we are having 8601 and all. The next thing that I would like to talk is, I want to talk about this particular code. What exactly this code is about, right? And you can see that under the core, you have something called EXP, you have REQ, and you have PERL. So a core is the one which is having three different variables, three different values. So what are those three different values? Number one. So let me talk about core. So the core is the one, sometimes it's difficult to write here. So we have something called core. So what exactly this core is? There I can say that it defines how you want to utilize this particular variable, or what is the significance of this particular variable. So do you mean to say that this variable is mandatorily required in my data set? Number two, if it is mandatorily, it is part of my data set. So what kind of values that are allowed? That is nothing but constraints. You can call it as a constraints. Number three, if it is not that important variable, can I skip it? So if I skip it, what is going to be the impact? Right? All these three things are defined by your code. For an example, the first one, let's go with the important one. That is nothing but the first type of code is required REQ, right? So we need to understand what is this, why it is important. So required means I need to say that these variables, if I say that it is a required variable, then I can say that variable must be included in domain. Whatever the case it is, it should be part of your domain. And also, this is the first case, variable must be included in the domain. Number two, the second important thing is going to be value cannot be null. Two things are important. What is that? The first thing, it is required, most important, no doubt about it. So I can obey that particular one. Second thing, I also need to understand that this particular variable, right, it must have it. It must have it. What is the best example? What is the best example? Let's say I'm just going with the demographics. This is my demographics information. Wonderful, Sanjay. Use subject ID. Yes. Let's say unique subject identifier. What is nothing but how you are identifying your subject based on your, what is that? USUBJ ID, unique subject identifier. What is the next thing? Let's say that I'm just having another variable here called age 6, and I also have age. For an example, under the unique subject identifier, I'm going with 111. So sex here is going to be male, and we also going to have my, let's say, age is going to be, let's say, around 30. So there is another guy. Let's say that this guy name is going to be, this subject ID is going to be 222. Let's say again M, and here it is going to be, yes, 35. And then let's say I have one more. This here I have 333. So female, and let's say that 28. Now, my first question is going to be, among these three, let's say if I don't include subject ID, if simply I just have sex and your age, will that make any sense? Will that make any sense? Whose age it is, right? Who is this, male or female, right? So does it have any significance at all? Not at all, right? There is no significance at all, right? So what you need to understand from here, this is one of the mandatory variable. Without this particular subject ID, unique subject identifier, this table doesn't have any sense. So it is a mandatory variable for me. So it is a required variable for me. Even you can see here. Unique subject identifier, you can see it is a required variable. Without this, I cannot, because which subject it is, I cannot understand. Correct? Second, okay. Can I have this particular value as a missing value? I have the variable name, but I don't have a value for it. Will that be any good? No, right? It should have a proper value as well. It should be a proper, it should have a proper value. At the same time, it should have a, it must be part of my domain. If I have such kind of variables, I can call them as a required variables. And if you look into this particular thing, your DM, the demographics one, around 30 variables you can see there. Among the 30 variables, around 10 are going to be your required variables. These are mandatory. These are supposed to be part of your thing. Okay. Now, the second thing is going to be expected. EXP stands for expected, right? So let me tell you what is this expected is going to be. Number 2, I have something called expected, which is nothing but EXP. So it is good to have. The value can be good to have. The value can be good to have, but when I talk about the variable must be included in the domain. Still, I cannot exclude the variable. It should be part of, right? Value can be missing. Value is good to have, meaning missing values are acceptable, right? Meaning I need to have this particular variable. Variable must be part of this particular domain, but I can, even if I don't have any if I don't have any value for it, that is fine. Maybe I can give you a different example here. Let's say that we have something called death date, right? So we have something called death date. So it doesn't require to have death date for each and every patient, correct? But we need to capture if someone is getting affected and if the particular person is about to die or he already dead, right? We need to record that as well. So death date is a mandatory field, but it may or may not have the value, but it is totally acceptable. Correct or not? Number 3, we have perm, which is nothing but permissible, which is nothing but permissible. This is nothing but it totally depends on your sponsor. What is that? Totally depends on sponsor. If sponsor want to have it, we can keep it. If totally depends on sponsor to include or exclude this particular variable. Totally, it is depends on the what to say sponsor. One of the example again we are talking about this, right? This also we need to see the values. If the values are good to have, if the values are missing, that is fine. We don't have any issues with that. For an example, what are going to be the examples for this? If someone asks me the example for it, I can simply say that, let's say we have investigator, correct? I really don't need to put investigator name as part of my domain. I don't need. If you keep it, okay, fine. Who is investigating this? Who is going to be the doctor? If you don't put it, no problem at all. Correct? So I can simply say that investigator name, maybe I can use it, may not be use it. That's absolutely fine for me. No issues at all. I can use it or I may not be use it. Correct? So can I say that this is going to be every one of you? Are you able to follow this? Can I have a quick confirmation? Simple. A very simple one that we are talking about here. All we are talking is that is whether Core is nothing but how you are dealing with your variables. Do you want this variable to be part of your output or not? Sorry, in the table or not? If yes, what is going to be that? What is going to be the significance of that? Clear, everyone? Can I have a quick confirmation on this? All of you are able to follow this? Yes or no? Okay. All right. The next thing is going to be still this SDTM guidelines is going to be continued, and what we are going to discuss here is, so now if you go to this, we know what is called code. We still need to understand two things. One is going to be role, another one is going to be CDISC modes. So under the SDTM guidelines, so the next topic that I would like to discuss is what is called role. So every variable should have a rule. It is at a variable level. Every variable should have a rule. Now the question is going to be what exactly this rule is all about. Okay. So first thing. So there are four roles available there. Again, number one, you can call it as identifier variables. Number two, the role can be identifier variable. It can be a timing variable. All right. Number three, it can be a topic variable, or it can be rule variables. In addition to that, we also have some qualifiers, right? We also need to talk about the qualifiers. Under the qualifiers, again, we have 5 qualifiers. Maybe we can talk about these qualifiers little later, because you can see here the record qualifier, synonym qualifier, you can see the timing variable, right? All of them are there. So it is also integral part of this particular one. So it's better to understand what is this qualifier as well. So let me talk about it. So under the qualifiers, the first thing is going to be record qualifier, or number two, it can be a result qualifier. Number three, you can also segregate this as a grouping qualifier. Number four, it can be synonym, right? Or it can be a variable qualifier. So these are the various qualifiers, and these are going to be the various role. So the role can be identifier, it can be a identifier variable, or it can be a timing variable, or it can be of your topic variable or a rule variable. Again, it can be a qualifier as well, right? It can be a qualifier as well. Under the qualifier, you have record, result, grouping, synonym, as well as the normal variables. So this part we are going to discuss tomorrow. In addition to that, we are also going to discuss about the CDISC modes. Correct? That is nothing but this. So we are going to talk about the role and CDISC modes. Once we have completed this, we can say that Sdtm guidelines is completed. From Monday onwards, we can start with the very first domain, which is nothing but the demographics domain. So as I told you, by tomorrow, all the theoretical topics, the basic guidelines which are required is going to complete. From Monday onwards, it is purely about the domains. Clear? Any questions, guys?
Murli, I have just one question regarding the permissible thing which we spoke. As you mentioned that the sponsor, it depends on the sponsor if we want to keep that variable or no. So,
Correct.
when we start with the study, does the sponsor give us the list of variables which would be permissible, or we as programmer have to decide, or we have to have a meeting with them and decide on those variables? How does it work?
No. See, look at from the demographic side. Let's say
Okay.
your sponsor, you can see this. This is my demographic, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you can see it on the screen, these are my demographic variables, right? So now among this, during the validation, all you need to understand is, let's say first thing is you are going to cleanse your data, you're going to do the data validation. Only after that you're going to work on your data, correct? So your sponsor has given these data sets, raw data sets. Sorry. Now, your sponsor has given these data sets. The first thing that you are going to see is, first you are going to see your data set has all the required variables are there or not. That is required as well as your what is the second one? Your
Expected.
expected variables, EXP
Yeah.
variables. Both of them are part of your data set or not. That you can quickly validate by using your proc contents. Correct? It is going to
Mm-hmm.
give you
Yeah.
the detail. Second, once you have this, the second check is going to be for all the required variables, you are going to check, do I have any missing value there or not? If I have the missing value, I can say that my required variable is part of my data set, but it has the null values. So fix it. So first itself, we are going to send these details back to your sponsor because you don't have the required data. After this, you really don't bother about your permissible variables. If it is there, good. If it is not there, you really don't bother about it because your sponsor is not interested to keep that particular one. Let's say you have your date and time of birth, right, of a subject. The sponsor can keep this variable as part of the data set. If you can't keep also, if you don't have this particular variable in your data set also, it is not a complainable thing. That's fine. It doesn't have impact. Is that clear what I'm trying to say? Right? It is only for
Yeah.
the validation purpose. Right? You are not going to have a specific meeting or something. When you are going to have a meeting is going to be your required variable is missing or your permissible variable is missing. You are going to ask him. Your required variable is there, but value is missing. Still, you can send it back. In all other cases, you continue with what you have there.
Yeah.
Clear?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Actually,
Any
I
other
think
query?
this question was with respect to when we are creating the mapping specification. In
Right.
case there is no reference to the study and the study is very new, in that case, when we prepare the mapping specification, that time I think even the permissible variables would be coming into picture. So in that case, how should we take a decision whether those variables need to be there or we have to remove it? So I think if it is there in CRF, we take it. If it is not, then we won't take it. Is
Exactly.
it correct? Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Because it is part of the CRF mean to say that
Mm.
from the subject it is recorded. Correct?
Yeah.
You collected the data from the subject. So
Mm-hmm.
it is available.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Let's say you
yeah.
collected the birth date information of a subject. It is part of the CRF, loaded.
Yeah.
Right? If it is
Mm-hmm.
not there in your CRF, mean to say that your annotated CRF have all the information, but this data value is missing there. So then
Yeah.
what do you
Mm.
understand? Mean to say that the sponsor is not giving this particular details to you. So you don't need to
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Understood. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions from anyone? Guys, clinical domains are bit harder. Mean to say that not to learn, but to listen, because these are very raw in nature. Because of that, you may feel difficult in the initial days. Mean to say, for the first 1 week of the classes, it will be little difficult, right? Once we started with the individual domains, it will be very quick. We can what to say, we can increase the pace and we can quickly cover the topics, and at the same time you also keep on looking at your assignments and all. I'll keep giving the assignments once you started with your first domain, so that it will be easy and you will also get the interest. Right? So till that, these are very important stuff. That's the reason, especially in the interviews, these are important. That is the reason we are knowing this particular one. Clear? Any other questions from anyone? All right, guys. Thank you, everyone. See you in tomorrow's class then.